Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I want to talk to you about the weird and wonderful language of BookTube. So this is a video that was suggested to me by a subscriber, and I do indeed quite often get comments from people asking what I mean by certain terms that I use in my videos. And it's easy to forget when you're someone like me who makes videos and indeed watches videos on BookTube day in, day out. And is so used to using these terms that they seem normal, it's easy to forget that to many people they are complete nonsense. And certainly when I first got into BookTube and started making videos and started watching videos, there were quite a few terms that I just didn't get at first and had to look up. So I do try in my videos, when I'm using a term that I know is not one that is, general, in the general public consciousness, I do try and describe what they are, kind of briefly within the video, but I thought it would be useful to make a video dedicated to it and just go through a whole bunch of them. So if there are any that I miss, do let me know in the comments, and indeed if you disagree with any of my different definitions, please let me know in the comments as well. I've grouped it into some different sections, so let's kick off with the first section, which is acronyms. So there are loads of acronyms on BookTube and around reading more generally. So let me go through what I think are some of the main ones. So DNF. DNFing is something we talk about a lot on BookTube. DNFing means, or what it stands for, is did not finish. So it means consciously stopping reading a book before you have finished it. And I think it's an important thing to be able to do, because it stops you reading books you aren't enjoying, but some people do struggle a lot with it. So DNF, did not finish. TBR stands for to be read. So this is something I do every month. I put up a monthly TBR video, which is the books I intend to read during that month. And a TBR could be for a specific period of time, like my monthly TBR videos, or it could be just generally all the books you've got that you haven't got to reading yet. If I were to think about all the books I've got that I haven't got to reading yet, it will be overwhelming. So I tend to group it into monthly TBRs. And the opposite of someone who is, like me, a TBR reader is what we call a mood reader. So a mood reader is somebody who doesn't set a strict structure for the books they're going to read in a month. They'll just grab something that they fancy. And mood readers do sometimes make videos where they talk about the books they're considering reading for a month. But rather than calling those a to be read pile, which feels quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Quite definite. They might call it a pile of possibilities or a maybe read pile. Okay, next one then is ARC, and I've seen two different definitions for this. So one is advanced reader copy, and another one is advanced review copy. So an ARC basically is a copy of a book, either a physical copy or a digital copy, that's provided by the publisher or author ahead of the official publication of the book, for people to, for reviewers, people like me, to have an opportunity to read it so they can get reviews out to tie in with the launch date of the book. Next one, so we've got two now that are about kind of ages, the ages of the readers, so YA and MG. So YA is young adult, so, typically kind of a teenager. So books like the Hunger Games books or the Maze Runner books would be considered to be YA. So books that are, not books that a little kid would read, and not necessarily books that an adult would read, but books aimed at a teenage audience. And then similarly, MG stands for middle grade. Being English, I have no idea what year's middle grade is, because we don't really have middle grade over here in our school system. But broadly speaking, children between the ages, I guess, of kind of 8 to 12, that sort of age. So things like the Goosebumps books would be a good example, I think, of middle grade books. Okay, so next up we have OV, which stands for Own Voices. So these are books written by authors from marginalised groups about their own experiences. So it could be, LGBTQI plus authors. It could be authors of colour. But the critical thing is that it is people who have lived experience of being in that marginalised group who are writing about it, rather than people from outside that group writing about it. And then finally, for acronyms, we have POV, which stands for point of view, so that, you know, the kind of perspective the book is written in. So, you know, you often get books written in the first person that are from the point of view of the main character. Okay, moving on then. So some kind of terms for different types of, I suppose, collaborative or group reading. So one is Readathon. So a Readathon is something like Garborgus 1.5, the Wasted Weekend, the one that I just ran recently. So a period of time that is dedicated to reading books, often of a particular type, but where there aren't set books necessarily that people read. So it could be, you know, reading books in a particular genre. It could be reading books by a particular group of authors or something like that. But, you know, people coming together to read books to a theme for a period of time. Moving on then, we have a read-along or a group read, which is typically where people pick a particular book and then all read it together. So in my Discord server, we do group reads every month where we read books from a list of books that were written in the birth years of people who are like subscribers to my channel or other booktubers. So that would be an example of a group read or a read along. And then another one is buddy read, which is kind of like group read on a smaller scale. So buddy read typically is just two people getting together to read a book together and share their experiences of it. So it's a really nice way of reading a book, particularly sometimes a more challenging book. So reading it in a buddy read or a group read can be a good way of doing it, because you've got other people to share your experience of the book with, to ask questions if you don't understand anything, you know, that kind of thing. I've had some really rewarding buddy reads, particularly of more difficult books, where I've been able to bounce ideas off the person or people that I'm reading the book with. So broadly speaking, in my view anyway, and people may disagree, buddy read is two people reading a book together, group read is more than two people reading a book together. Okay, let's talk about apps then. So I've got so firstly, let's talk about just terminology that's kind of around apps. So BookTube, for example. So we have BookTube, which you're watching now. By watching this video, you are watching a BookTube video. So BookTube basically is a video that's on YouTube that's about books. So BookTube as a noun, if you like, is a collective of people who make YouTube videos talking about bookish stuff. And similarly, you have BookTok, which is people talking about books on TikTok. You have BookTwitter, which is people talking about books on Twitter. And you have Bookstagram, which is people talking about books and sharing pretty pictures of books on Instagram. Then getting into like specific apps outside of the ones where people actually share their content. Discord is one you will hear talking about a lot. In fact, I've already mentioned it in this video. So Discord is an app that was originally developed for video gamers, but it's a really good way of just having collective discussions about things. So if you use something like Microsoft Teams at work or Slack, or in the past if you've been part of like a web forum, Discord is very similar to those things. So you will have a list of channels within the Discord dedicated to different topics. So for example, on my Discord server, we've got like one about crime and horror books, we've got one about movies, we've got, dedicated channels for group reads we're doing and things like that. So a focused discussion within a channel about a particular topic, but anybody who's part of the Discord can join in, can reply to people, can react to people's messages, can add their own opinions. So just a fantastic way for people to get together and chat about, in my case, books. And I consider my Discord server to be very much part of my channel, an extension of what I do on the channel. So for me, Criminology isn't me sitting here talking to you about books, it's me sitting here talking to you about books and all of the discussions that go on my Discord server as well. Moving on then, another app that people use, so Discord I think is a fantastic app. I think it's a really well designed and helpful and easy to use app. An app that I would not use any of those terms to describe is another one which for some reason is popular on BookTube, which is Voxer. So I had never heard of Voxer before I started doing BookTube videos. Discord I was already using. Voxer is a messaging app where you can have like big groups of people messaging together. but with particular focus on, or its kind of unique selling point, if you like, is the ability to record like spoken messages. So using it kind of like a walkie-talkie. So you can have a big group of people who are either typing messages or recording messages and sharing them with each other. So it's often used by booktubers like me to discuss, kind of events that we're planning and that kind of thing. But personally, I think Discord is a much better way of doing it. Okay, so that's some apps out of the way. So let's talk now about types of videos. This is types of video you might see on BookTube, and you'll often see these, when you're scrolling through your feed or your suggestions on YouTube, you'll see these terms. So I thought it'd be useful just to go through them and tell you what they are. So first one is a book haul. So a book haul is basically someone who has just got a load of new books showing them to you. So it's very kind of basic YouTube kind of a video, in that it is literally just someone showing you things one after the other and talking about them. So I quite like doing book hauls because they're really, really easy to make, and I really enjoy watching them as well because you never really know what you're going to get next. So that's a book haul, and then kind of the opposite of a book haul is an unhaul video, which is where someone has decided to part with a load of their books, and we'll take you through, again, we'll take you through those books and talk to you about them and let you know why they're getting rid of them. Another type of video which we do a lot on BookTube is a tag video. So I try and do one of those every Tuesday, and indeed Tag Tuesday, as it's known, tends to be the day people do tag videos. So a tag is effectively a series of questions that someone comes up with and answers in a video, and then they will tag other people to answer the same questions in their videos. So an example would be for my reading event Garb August last year, I created a trashy books tag, which had, I can't remember how many questions, but say 10 questions about trashy books, like, what's a book you would be ashamed to be seen reading in public? Or what's the first book you remember reading before you were old enough to? That kind of thing. So I would give my answers to those questions, and at the end of the video I say, I'm going to tag these 3 booktubers, I want to hear your answers, and the tags kind of spread organically through the community. And then kind of similar to a tag video is a response video. So that's where somebody has made a video expressing a particular opinion. So on my channel, I tend to do kind of opinion-y videos on a Sunday. Another booktuber might watch that video, and, either it might just, get them interested to give their own opinions on that topic, or they might violently agree with my opinions, and they can make a response video, and they'll typically put in the title or description of the video that it's a response video to, a video by so-and-so. Okay, moving on then, so book reviews. So book reviews are, kind of a mainstay of BookTube, as you would expect. I tend to do 1 or 2 every week, but somebody just talking about a book, giving their opinions of a book over the course of a video. Similar to that, then you might get something like a top 10 video. It doesn't have to be 10, but, a top list of books with a particular theme. So I did a while ago a list of 10 short horror novels that I thought were really good, and it's almost like you get mini reviews of those. You get mini reviews of those books in the top 10. So it's kind of like 10 reviews in one video. And then you will also get people doing kind of wrap-up videos. So I talked earlier on about TBR videos, so videos where people talk about the books they're going to read in a particular month. People will do wrap-ups either on a weekly or a monthly basis. I tend to do both, where they'll talk about the books they've read in that time period and give their opinions of those books. So again, those can be kind of like mini reviews. And then another form of video, which in some ways is similar to a book haul video, in that it just tends to involve people showing you a stream of books, is a library tour or a shelf tour. So I did a load of these early on in the life of my channel. I did a complete tour of all the books I've got. But yeah, basically somebody taking you through their book collection, often over multiple videos, because most people have got too many books to fit into one video. But yeah, quite an interesting way to get to know a particular booktuber's likes and dislikes in terms of the books they've got in their collection. And then finally, there were a few kind of bookish terms I thought it was worth talking about, which aren't necessarily BookTube specific ones, but are words that turn up on BookTube a lot. So one is denouement, which basically means the overall conclusion of the book. So I tend to use it particularly where I'm talking about a mystery novel. So the denouement of a mystery novel will be the bit at the end when you find out who did it, basically, and why they did it and how they did it. So that's a term that certainly I use quite a lot. Trope is a term that comes up a lot. So a trope is a kind of recurrent theme or motif in a particular genre in particular. So, you know, a trope of the romance genre might be like the kind of second chance romance or something like that. It's a term that I think, you know, I think the word cliche is kind of similar to trope, but trope is perhaps a kinder way of saying it, and cliche I think is something of a judgmental term. It suggests that something is overused and a bit played out. Tropes can be overused and played out clearly, but often they are, you know, part of the enjoyment of that particular genre or subgenre for readers. Next up then we have canon. So canon means, I think there are kind of two meanings for canon which are similar. So canon traditionally means the body of work, particularly in a particular genre or form of literature, which is considered to be the kind of the core of it, the foundation of it. So part of the canon of crime fiction, for example, would be the Sherlock Holmes books by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So, you know, a book or series of books which are really important to the genre that have helped it to establish itself and grow over time. Canon can also mean, and it's kind of a term that has come into use more recently in kind of nerdier circles, shall we say. So canon can mean the parts of a particular universe which are still considered to be true. So it's kind of a weird term, but people use it a lot for things like Star Wars. So when you think about the Star Wars franchise, you've got the core films, all of which are canon. They are part of the part of the Star Wars universe and what fans accept to be the truth of the story of Star Wars, if you like. But then there are dozens and dozens of books that have been written based on or set in the Star Wars universe that have been written over the years. And some of those books are considered to be canon, so are considered to contain events which fit the overall the overall continuum of like the history of the Star Wars universe. And then you get other books which are not considered to be canon, which aren't part of that overall story, but still kind of take place in the Star Wars universe. I'm not sure if that made any sense, that description. It did when I wrote it down, but let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. And then the final term for today then is tome or mammoth. So a tome, and I'm trying to remember the exact number of pages. I think a tome is a book that's over 500 pages, and a mammoth is a book that's over 800 pages. So basically big books. So March, which is coming up, there is a BookTube event called March of the Mammoths, where people try to read some bigger books and books over 800 pages. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. So I thought I would pull out a book which is both a tome and a mammoth. So that is the collected all-in-one edition of the Death Note manga, which is 2,400 pages long. So definitely a big old book, but very enjoyable. So I hope you found that useful. Let me know in the comments if there's any terms you think I missed out. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.